Hello, Monica. I have made you co-host, so you can share, right?
Let me
Great.
know if everybody can see my screen.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
All right. So, to give you a little background, I have an MBA in finance and HR. However, my entire career has been in initially in sales and then eventually in people development, especially coaching, executive coaching. And when I was the managing director of Leadership Management International, which is a company based out of the US, I was their managing director for India. And at that point in time, I had a lot of startups coming to me for various sessions, and that I worked very closely with a lot of startups. There was a startup nursery which on which I was on one of the panelists and used to help a lot of people in terms of their needs that you have in with a startup. Everything from statutory requirements as far as HR is concerned, a lot of skill sets, and mainly presenting to private equity and investors. I've also been a speaker at Manipal University several times for their batch that actually graduated and were working on a lot of startup projects. So I have closely worked, and which is why, and I have also worked on the private equity side. So kind of know both sides of what is required. And that is the reason why I'm today making a presentation on soft skills that are required for managing relations with stakeholders. When we say stakeholders, what do we really mean? So the biggest point, the most important point here is to build and maintain a stakeholder buy-in into whatever projects or products or strategies we're working on. It is very urgent, but it takes a side seat. It just becomes important for the time being. And then you say, okay, I will do it when I come to it. And then it just falls by the wayside. The administration and the processes that you require for your board meetings, for your shareholders, for your advisors, for your vendors, customers, employees, etc., are very critical, and they will not be developed overnight. It is a long-term strategy. So you cannot allow it to just, take a backseat for the time being while you're actually focusing on building your business. Seasoned entrepreneurs who are with experience, they know this, but often other entrepreneurs, the new entrepreneurs, do not realize this until it is pretty late in the day. So coming to who are your stakeholders? You have internal as well as external stakeholders. So traditionally, when we said stakeholders, we only referred as the board of directors or the investors. We didn't think of other people as stakeholders. But that definition over a period of time has completely changed. So today a stakeholder is anybody who can impact your business. Doesn't necessarily mean in terms of profit, but or anything related to financials, but even in other ways. So whether it is an internal stakeholder like your employee, your managers, your promoters, they are all your internal stakeholders because they do impact your business. And then you have a whole lot of external stakeholders, which are your suppliers, your customers, your vendors, your government agencies, etc. So identifying who your stakeholders are, what are the motivations, how do they influence your business, what are their motivators, etc., is extremely important, because the way you behave and the way you customize your let's say, pitch or communication will depend a lot on how well you understand your stakeholders. So you develop your strategies because the stakeholders are going to help you, help influence the outcomes ultimately. And each one will play a different. Can everybody mute themselves, please? I'm hearing a lot of bells and noises. Okay, so because you have to manage each of your stakeholders differently, it becomes very important for you to focus on the soft skills, the behavioral skills, which tend to take a backseat initially. I'm sorry, I'm not able to change my slide. Okay. So understanding the stakeholders, which is the first thing that you need to do. You need to make a list of who are your current stakeholders. I'm sure that with each of the projects or businesses that you all are working on, you may not still have the entire gamut of stakeholders. You may have very few, but upwards, outwards, downwards, internal, external, sideways, make a list of all your stakeholders, people who will impact or influence the outcomes of your business. How much of your success is dependent on these stakeholders? What you could do is, on a scale of 1 to 10, once you've made your list, rank them, where 1 is the least and 10 is the most. And you can actually see how much of them are, how much of your success is dependent on what the stakeholder does. What drives these stakeholders? That's a completely different story. So what drives an employee versus what drives an investor versus what drives a board, what drives a promoter, what drives a government agency is very, very different. Not everything is linked to a financial gain. And hence, it is very important that once you have seen, you've rated your stakeholders on a scale of 1 to 10 as to what kind of an impact they have on the success of your business, then it becomes important that the ones that have the most impact, you know what are their drivers, because that is key to how you communicate with them. How much power do these stakeholders hold? Sometimes people may not have a direct stake at all, but they have a lot of power to influence. And to what extent can they influence your business or project? So while they're not directly involved, or they may not even be active on a day-to-day basis, but they have a lot of power to influence the project. You need to take into consideration those stakeholders as well. Are there conflicting interests between the stakeholders? Sometimes your stakeholders' needs or interests could be working cross purposes. You need to take that into control, because if you do not manage that well, you will end up having internal conflicts. And what actions do you need these stakeholders to take, which is going to impact? So it's not all you're doing. Sometimes you are looking for guidance, you are looking for them introducing you to people. Depending on what are the actions you are expecting them to take, will also then reflect on how you are communicating and what sort of a relationship you're building with them. Now, there are various tools available thanks to technology. You have a lot of project management tools. You have tools that will guide you on your timelines, etc. But none of these tools will tell you anything about the behavioral skills that you need to manage stakeholders. It is these behavioral skills such as influencing, conflict management, relationship building, etc., that make a real difference. And that is something tools cannot manage. The technological tools cannot manage. You're going to require behavioral tools or soft skills tools to enhance that. So deciding what are the skills that are needed. These are just some that I have listed, which are very critical. There is a long list of skills, which some are inherent within you because I would assume that the very fact that you've decided to start a business of your own, which means the risk-taking capability, etc., the creativity is already there. So I have not actually focused on those things. Those are a given right now. But across the organization, you're going to require communication skills, and in communication skills, critical is listening. Then you're going to require relationship building across levels, across stakeholders. You're going to require decision making to an extent based on what role you are in, because in a lot of startups, the decisions are made by certain key critical people to the system. Based on what role you are playing, what are your profiles, you're going to require influencing skills, negotiation skills, relationship management skills. Building a relationship and managing a relationship are two different things. In your initial stages, when you're being introduced to people, you're still in the building stage. But then to sustain that relationship, you require a different set of skill sets. You require conflict management, like I just mentioned, that your stakeholders their needs and their interests could be at cross purposes. And then you require social networking. We are in a digital world. So the kind of image that you create on your social networking platforms equally requires a lot of behavioral skills, not just technical skills. Over and above that, of course, leadership and change management for promoters and senior management who are driving these businesses. So these are some of the critical skills that you are going to require right from day one. I have then divided these skills into various levels because you have different stakeholders. So you have your executives and you have your leadership, which is your board, your investors, your promoter. These are all your senior team that are driving the business. What you require, what you need to keep in mind as far as your communication with them is concerned, is you need to send your presentations in advance when a meeting is scheduled. If you already have a board, you need to send them the deck, which will consist of everything: your balance sheet, your P&L, etc., or where are you as of now in terms of your product development or service development or whatever it is that you're working on. You need to send an agenda in advance. You need to share all the other material based on their interests and what the meeting is scheduled for. You need to be data driven, validate and know your facts. So often what a lot of startups do is they have 3 to 5 critical KPIs. KPIs are your key performance indicators, or they are your milestones in development. So you know that at the senior team is looking for these, and these are something that you've agreed with the senior team on. So these are the 5 critical indicators that show that you are on track, that you are achieving what you have set out to achieve. And if these 5 indicators are all data driven, which means it is not something that you think is happening, but you have enough supporting data to prove that it is happening. So if I say that I am 50% complete on a certain phase in my service or product development, or in making my sales pitch, then you need to be able to validate that and give facts, because at a senior level, people want to see data. They want to see proof. As we say, the proof of the pudding is in eating it. So they want to see that it is actually there. Be specific about your meeting goals. So when you set up a meeting, don't just leave it, open-ended. You need to have what is the agenda, what are your goals, and at the end of the meeting, what do you hope to achieve? It's not that I just have a list of things that I want to discuss, but do you need to close certain things? So you need to have very clear goals and let everybody know in advance how you want them to participate. So if you actually require a decision to be made in that meeting, please let them know that these are the things that we are discussing. These are the challenges that we face, and we want a resolution on this. So how you want them to participate is something that you need to let them know, so that they have enough time to come prepared. Take notes, whether this is you use your iPads, you use technology, whatever it is, but do take notes. Don't leave things open-ended. Unless, of course, they ask you a question you are not prepared with and you need to get back to them. But when you do say that I will come back to you with this, make sure that you're giving them a deadline, by what time you will come back, and then ensure that you do go back on that date. If for whatever reason you're going to be delayed, then let them know in advance that you've tried, but for whatever reason you will not be able to deliver on that date, and then give them another date. But never ever leave things open. There is always a commitment, a cascading commitment made even to schedule a telephone call. Proactively send high-level updates after the meeting. So I know we already send minutes of the meeting, but sometimes the minutes of the meeting are so verbatim. They are long drawn pages and pages of information. You may want to send high-level updates. Sometimes all executives or all directors on the board or all the promoters are not in the meeting. Somebody may have missed. So the highlights are very important, so that people who do not have the time to read through the whole thing at least know what happened. Customize the message. Don't provide too many details when it is not necessary. So sometimes you don't need to show the working of everything on an Excel sheet, or you don't need to show a breakup of each and every expense, but you just need to communicate a summarized dashboard. So you need to know who you are communicating to. If you're communicating to some people who require a lot of analytical data and want to see your working and everything, then okay, you will have to give details. But if you are going for a board meeting, they don't want to see the details of how you calculated something or what is the breakup of it. So you need to customize it based on who you're presenting to. Don't surprise your audience with bad news. Now, everything does not need to be goody-goody. Just because you are presenting to your board or your promoter or your investor doesn't mean that everything is hunky-dory and everything's going as per your timelines and schedules. Sometimes things happen, external and internal, and you are also the deliverer of bad news. When you're giving bad news, please ensure that it doesn't come as a surprise. If there is something that has happened, communicate by mail, speak to them. Don't just throw it as a surprise in a board meeting or in an investor meeting. But you need to be transparent. Just trying to hide something that hasn't happened and trying to cover it up is not going to work for you. You need to be transparent. It is expected that in the initial stages, you may have setbacks. I'm not saying all of you do, but you may have setbacks, and that's perfectly understandable. Hiding that is not. So be prepared that there are going to be times when you're going to have to deliver bad news. Say some employee who was very key to this decided to quit. So these are things that you need to keep them informed about. Don't waste time by not being prepared. Never go for a meeting if you are not prepared to deliver as per the goals and the agenda of that meeting. If you require more time, ask for it, because you are wasting a whole lot of people's time if you yourself are not prepared for the meeting. Be attentive to the dynamics in the room. This is very, very important. We get so caught up when making our presentations and making our pitch that we are not observant of what is happening around us. And by saying that, I'm not talking only about listening, because listening is one part of it. They will ask you the questions and you need to listen, and I'll come to that a little later. But when I'm saying dynamics of the room, one is right from the time you're making the presentation, check out the room, check out the technology. Is your laptop properly connected? Is it working? Do you need an internet connection? Don't do that once the meeting starts. That is not acceptable. People lose patience, especially senior level people. Time is money. So do not waste time doing all of that. Second is look at the body language of the people around you. Is somebody bored? Is somebody, trying to, I mean, there's an expression on the face which is like the person seems to have questions, has not understood what you're saying, cannot hear you very well. All of these things are the dynamics of the room. Somebody is uncomfortable and you can see it because he or she is sitting directly under the blast of the AC. Happens a lot of times. It has happened to me that the moment I'm sitting under the blast of the direct blast of the AC, I'm not focusing on the presentation because I'm feeling too cold. These are things that you as a presenter need to be aware of. Don't get so caught up in your own communication that you are not observant of what is happening around you. Then comes your team, that is the employees. You need to review the strategy and roadmaps on a regular basis, because it is not a set path. There are lots of things that happen in a startup which are trial and error. It's not like have been there, done that, we know that this is the process. There could be challenges, there could be new ideas, there could be better ways of doing things. So whatever your strategy is and whatever the roadmap that you have decided does need to get reviewed with the team on a regular basis, especially because the promoters come up with the idea, then they start building the team, and the team is actually delivering on that idea. And once you start actual delivery, there may be things that might change. So what you conceptualized and what actually happens at the ground level may be two different things. And that feedback only comes from them because they are the ones on the ground. So you need to keep reviewing your strategies and roadmap with your team frequently. Make notes and send out key decisions on action items. There may be meetings that you have which may not involve everybody. But if the decision taken during that meeting impacts other people and is something that they should know, share it. And share also the action items that people are required to take basis that meeting. Proactively facilitate communication among team members. You need to build a team that communicates with each other and doesn't work in silos. They may be from different departments. They may have different skill sets. They may be responsible for different tasks, but ensure that right from the beginning, you are building a team which is comfortable and communicating with each other. And since they are going to be new to the whole business and to the organization, you are the one who's going to have to facilitate that communication. You are the key. Don't make decisions in silos. When I say decisions in silos, which means you may think, okay, this is a sales related decision. I don't think the design team or the finance team or the operations team needs to know about it. No. Certain decisions impact everyone directly or indirectly. So don't make decisions in silos. If you are doing something on the basis of the sales feedback, you need to involve the design team. If you're changing something for sales, you may need to involve the finance team. So involve people when you're making decisions, because a different perspective, a different challenge may come up which you may not have thought of. Update the team on any changes that you are making, whether they are structural changes, they are strategy changes, whatever changes you are making, keep them involved, because that will build your accountability, your ownership, your passion will come out of team being informed. And I know we live in a technology world, and yes, right now with the lockdown, a lot of us are working from home. However, as things open up and they get better, face-to-face interactions are very important, because body language and behaviors tell you a whole lot more, which gets hidden or camouflaged on a conference call or through technology. So face-to-face interactions are extremely important. You move to technology only when You are at a stage where, you know, your relationships are built and you're very comfortable with each other. And even if you don't see somebody's face, you know what they mean. But initially, we haven't reached that stage yet. And it is important that if you are sitting in the same office, if you can do the same job by walking across to the person and talking rather than sending a mail or picking up the phone, then do it. Far more important, helps in relationship building as well. Then coming to other internal and external people that you deal with who are equally important stakeholders. One is other departments. So the different departments involved in your business, which could be right now may not be so many, just maybe one or two or three people teams, but eventually it will expand and you will have departments. And external, not just vendors, you could have government agencies, etc. So make effort to understand their challenges. It's not necessary that as a business you have a holistic approach. You will not have it until you understand what a person who's liaising with the government is facing, what the finance team is facing, what the person who is interacting with customers is facing. So you need to, and somebody who's trying to get you funding, maybe there is some challenges that they are facing in getting an investor to you. So all of this is important for you to understand. Customize your message to meet their needs. So if I were talking about a certain service or a product or things like that to a finance department, I wouldn't talk in a very creative way as I would with a sales team, or as I would like to do with a customer. They are interested in something different. So you would have to customize the message for the finance team. If you are talking to a investor, you know that they are interested in the feasibility of the whole project. So, and they are also interested in who's in the background of who's managing the project. So they want details on certain things, which you will have to customize in a different way. When you're talking to your employees, they may be interested in a different way. What's in it for them? How will the company grow? With the growth of the company, how will they grow? So different messages for different people, depending on who you're communicating with. The same message will have to be designed or drafted in a different way. Involve the right people at the right time. Even if there are certain things that are confidential initially until things materialize, you don't want to speak about it, that's fine. But at the right time, you need to involve the right people, because they might be influencers in the whole project. Educate if necessary. Sometimes people don't have knowledge, and a lot of companies, forget startups, even now, in a full-fledged 20-25-year-old company, if I go to the finance team and at the junior level of the finance and accounts department, if I go and ask them, what is your business? How does your product work? What do you manufacture? Sometimes they are clueless. They know what they are selling because obviously they are raising invoices, etc. But they have no clue how the product is made, even though they are a manufacturing industry. So I truly believe that the passion and the ownership and the willingness to become a part of a success story, that comes only if people are aware. They are educated about every aspect of the business. That's when they are able to deliver what their task is very, very well, because you know, one, how other people are operating, how other departments are operating, and how you all impact each other. So that interpersonal skills here becomes very important, that even if I'm the design team or even if I'm the finance team, I'm always interacting with the sales team. If I get a chance, I'll even interact with customers. Build relationships. This goes across. So one is, of course, build relationships internally with your colleagues and other team members, but also with clients, also with vendors. Make vendors part of your story. Vendors and suppliers will do will help support you much better if they understand what you are doing and they are a part of your success story. So building relationships with them is also equally critical. Building relationships with your directors, people who are on your board, who are influencers, who are guiding you, building relationships with your investors who can help you grow your business and introduce you to people that you probably don't even know personally. Create transparency. Creating transparency, like I said earlier, bad news, good news, information that you need to share, make it transparent. There's nothing to hide. People will only help you. Don't ignore anyone's concerns. If somebody raises a concern, you need to be able to address it. I'm not saying you will always find a solution. Solutions may not be available immediately, but to ignore a concern is giving birth to a conflict. So please address concerns. You may not have solutions, but at least address it and say, I will try to rectify it, or I will try to come up with a solution, and then go back. And if you don't come up, then ask for help. But don't try to ignoring, putting things under the carpet does not solve the problem, doesn't make it go away. It makes it bigger. And then when it comes as a big volcano. So you might as well address it when it erupts. Then you have your customers, of course, very critical to growing your business. And once you have a service or a product to offer and you are starting to go to customers, make efforts to understand what are the user challenges. We often say, okay, this is our service or this is our product, and we have already designed or come up with a product or service keeping our target audience in mind. And hence we know that, we need to approach these people because they are our ideal users. However, when we are making our pitch, we are so caught up again in our own sales pitch and in our own presentation that we don't take the time to understand what the challenge of the customer is. And sales isn't done that way. Sales is not about you loving your own voice. Sales is about 30% of the effort made by you in terms of talking about your product, your company, etc. 70% is about asking questions and listening to what the customer needs are. Because unless you are able to link the features and the benefits of your product or service to what the customer's challenges are, your sale will not get closed. And that's a completely different story. That's a sales pitch. Identify the benefits that are most important to the customer. Like I said, you need to build a bridge between what the customer's current challenges are, what needs does he have, and how will your product or service with its features build that bridge and meet his requirements. Most important to build that bridge. Involve the right people at the right time. Again, it is not necessary that only the salesperson has to go and sell. Sometimes if the salesperson identifies a customer who is very, let's say, technically oriented, then you might want to take somebody from your technical or the design team along with you to be able to answer some of the questions that the customers ask. So it is not necessary that you only want to involve the salespeople. Sometimes it helps to take along somebody else with a different set of skill sets or knowledge. Again, educate if necessary. Sometimes your customers need education because they are comparing apples and oranges. This happens because they don't know better. So they may be comparing your service or product with something which is already available in the market without realizing that there are features in that product that they don't even need. So to educate your customer again becomes very important. Building relationships, of course, that is for not just because a person's your customer and is responsible for your growth, but also because of the kind of goodwill they help you build, the repeat business you can get from them, etc. So building relationships, even if you go and make a sales pitch and the customer does not buy your product because currently doesn't have a need or cannot afford or wants to take a decision later on, there is no harm in building a relationship. There is no harm in asking for a reference that, okay, you might not need it right now, but would you know of somebody who would need it? We believe that we can ask for a reference only once we have sold. Not necessary. If you build a good relationship with a person, that person can at least influence a decision making for somebody else. And again, with customers to create transparency, be very open about what your product can and cannot do. Do not hide just because the competition has this, so we can do it. The important point here is, what does a customer need? If there is a feature in a competitive product, and if yours doesn't have it, there is a reason why you did not think it important to have it, because maybe only 10% of your target audience actually needs it. The others don't need it. So you don't want the customer to pay extra for a feature he doesn't even need. So that is where transparency comes in. Do not hide behind so much of sales talk that you lose the opportunity to be transparent or build a relationship with a customer, and the customer goes back feeling that, oh, this was only a hardcore sales push. Sales is not about push, it should be about pull. The benefits of having all these skill sets is you will land up reducing a lot of misunderstanding around what you're doing. Misunderstandings internally, externally, with the board members, with investors, with everyone, because your communication is coming with a whole lot of clarity. You will ensure that timelines and budgets are being respected because you're keeping people informed. You are being more organized because your communication is clear. The tasks that are assigned to various team members, vendors, etc., do not have to get replicated, or there are less errors because there has been clear instructions being given. Clarifying expectations from stakeholders because of clarity of the budgets, the goals that you need to meet, talking to your stakeholders and understanding what are they expecting and what is expected out of them. You have clarity in terms of expectations, hence your communications are tailor-made. Decreasing conflicts between groups of stakeholders. When you're open, you're transparent, then there is reduced conflicts. There is a lot of understanding between the stakeholders. And it increases commitment and investment from stakeholders. And by investment, I don't only mean investment in terms of money, but even investment in terms of time and the effort that a person needs to make you a success. Besides communication, I covered communication in so much detail because that's the most important skill, not just for your presentations, but also from an attitude and a behavioral perspective. So everything from the tone of your voice to the way you, to your body language and your expressions, everything is very important. The other skills that you're going to require are conflict management, because you're going to be handling various stakeholders. And if there happens to be a conflict of interest, then there will arise a conflict. And if these conflicts are very well managed, then you will retain the focus of a goal, which everybody's goal is the same. So you will have to manage these conflicts, and to manage a conflict, you require a whole lot of behavioral skills, a lot of understanding, a lot of communication and transparency. Building trust. When you're new and you're setting up a new team and you're talking to new people every day, it is very important to build trust, and that happens through sharing. The more you share, the more trust you will win. More you are transparent, the more trust you will win. So when you get people involved, even while making decisions, even, to get their interest, you share stuff with them. They will help you achieve your goals, and you will be able to win over their trust, and they will be able to trust you because you have been honest with them. Negotiation, of course, we all want a win-win situation. However, in a negotiation, when does a negotiation go awry? It doesn't. It goes the other way in a negative sense when you are not listening, when you are not articulating the problems and challenges in a very clear way, and you're not trying to understand the other side's challenges or their interests. That's when a whole negotiation can go completely downward. So if you want to attempt at a win-win, you are going to have to sit first, resolve all the challenges or all the problems. And I'm not saying that because two teams have a difference of opinion or two people have a difference of opinion, you absolutely need to resolve all the differences. You will never be able to resolve all the differences. However, you will be able to, at least you can make an attempt that if there are 5 most important challenges or disagreements, at least try to reach a middle path for that. And for that, you're going to need to have good negotiation skills, which starts with understanding and listening first, being able to articulate the problems, what its impact would be for both parties, and then consider what you can do away with and what you absolutely need to reach a middle path. So that negotiation, I'm not talking only with investors. It could happen with employees. It could happen with vendors. It could be any stakeholder. Then you have decision making. Of course, decision making is at every stage, right from the lowest rung of your employee to the highest rung to people who are supporting you externally. You have to follow a process. You have to be able to define a problem, discuss it with people, brainstorm for solutions, define how will you evaluate whether the selected solutions will work for you or are not working for you, gain acceptance from people who are actually going to be impacted, analyze, implement, and review. When you review, you might find not working, you may have to make changes, but a decision making has to be a complete process. Otherwise, if you make decisions in silos without taking people who are going to be impacted by it into consideration, it may backfire. Plus, involving people in decision making always, builds trust and wins their confidence and gets them more involved. Influencing and active listening. Although listening is a part of the communication skills, I've deliberately stated it separately over here. Influencing, yes, a lot of your stakeholders are your influencers and you are influencing their thought process. So influencing is about using your relationship with team members or with other stakeholders in a way where you can win their collaboration and help make them cooperative, make the right decisions in achieving your goals. So influencing is going to work both ways. You are going to be an influencer for some people, but some people are going to be your influencers as well. And how you build your relationship and then use that relationship to achieve what you have to is a skill. Other than that, active listening, and there are degrees of listening. So there is a difference between hearing and listening. And I know, I'm assuming that all of you know that difference, that hearing is actually passive listening. And when you are not attentive, so I could be talking to you right now and there could be some noise in the background. I'm hearing, I can hear that noise, but I am not attentive. So I really am not paying attention to that noise at all. That is hearing. Listening could be active and passive. Passive listening is, say there is some song playing in the background. If you were to stop that song from playing, even though I am speaking to you or listening to what you are saying, if you ask me what was that song, I will be able to tell you what that song was. because although I was not actively listening to the song, I was listening enough to know which song it was. So that is passive listening. Active listening is when your full attention is to the opposite person. You are able to, so the difference between the three stages in active listening, which is repeating, paraphrasing, and reflecting. The basic is same, that you perceive something basis what somebody else is telling you, you are paying attention and you remember what the person has said. But in repeating, you are actually being a parrot. You are repeating exactly verbatim whatever that person said, which means you are telling that person, I have listened to what you have said. In paraphrasing, you go one step ahead. You are actually thinking at the same time, and you're trying to reason and trying to think, okay, this is the problem. What would be the solution? So there is some amount of thinking going into it, which is why when you are repeating it, you are using similar words, but not the same words. So it's not verbatim, but you have used similar words because you were also thinking. So you don't exactly remember the words the person used, but you got the gist of it. When you're reflecting, you're thinking, reasoning, and trying to bring out a solution. So you have actually summarized what the person said his problem was in your own words, which means you've actually thought it completely through. Now, I'm not saying that you always need to be in the reflecting stage. You need to be in a reflecting stage if you're trying to resolve a problem. But you could be in a repeating or a paraphrasing stage when you're just trying to understand something. So both are different, all three are different and have different characteristics. What you are using when is very important. If I was making a presentation to my board, if I was making it to somebody who's influencing my business, if I'm making it to an investor, I would like to be in a reflecting stage because they are asking me questions. And before I answer, I want to be able to understand exactly what they are asking me. If I am trying to understand some vendor who has come to sell something to me, then I'm probably paraphrasing because I want to understand what he has to offer. And if I'm repeating, it could only be because somebody has just told me, by the way, I'm not supposed to be taking any action on it, but because I want to make the person feel that, no, I've heard him out, I'm just repeating what he said. So all three could have very different uses. And all three are active, which means you have to be listening to understand. Same thing, when you speak, you have to speak to be understood. So all your communication gaps that happen because of listening. And that needs to be ruled out. You need to make yourself a good listener. Last but not the least is your leadership skills. And because all of you are promoters of your respective startups, these skills are very important at your level. What is leadership? Leadership is about being able to lead the team. Take everybody who is impacting your business with you. So you have to be able to convey the big picture. You have to be an inspiration. You have to be able to inspire and motivate people to help you achieve your goals. You are not going to be able to do it alone. So it is about showing people how achieving your goals is in alignment to their goals as well. As an individual, every human being has his or her own goals. As an investor, I may have my own goals. As a director on your board, I may have my own goals. As an employee, I may have my own goals. As a vendor, as a customer, everybody has different goals. But if you want to align their goals to your larger picture, your goals, then you have to be able to inspire and show them how. So whether it's an investor trying to make money, or it's somebody on your board who wants to ensure that you have a sustainable business and you grow year on year, whether it's an employee who's looking at his own career path within the organization, or whether it's a vendor who's trying to see how long will this relationship last and what's in it for me. Whatever it is, You should be able to inspire, motivate, and share with them enough so that their goals, they understand your goals and their goals get aligned with yours. So sharing information, involving people, understanding customers, keeping open both upward and downward communication channels open, and resolving conflicts in a fair manner will demonstrate how good a leader you are, and will also in the process hone your leadership traits. You will become a better leader as time progresses. It's not something as a leader, you're always in the learning mode. So there's never like, okay, now I'm 100% a good leader. It'll never happen. But there is, every phase is a learning phase. And the more you learn and the more you implement your learning to make a positive change, the better you will get with your entire relationship building with all the stakeholders in your organization. So with that, I end my talk, but I would love to answer any questions or, clarify any doubts that all of you have.
Participants, the floor is now open for the question and answer session. So any of the participants having any kind of question, just either type on the chat section or just unmute your mics and you can ask directly.
Did I go too fast that people didn't understand?
No, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I have a small question. So, people usually, lot of times, they feel very reluctant or very shy while talking to any investor, or most of the times, promoter are very like shy talking to their team. So, any tips you feel like they need to follow? Any thoughts on this, ma'am?
The shyness comes from the fact because you are putting yourself in the other person's position and thinking, what will they think? What will they ask? I mean, will they think that I'm not presenting well? Will they ask me a question I will not be able to answer? Will I be focusing so much on their facial expressions that I will forget what I have to say? All of these thoughts that are going on in your mind is what makes you shy or more conscious of what you are doing. But if you were alone in a room and had to passionately present your product, you would be able to do it. So I think what you need to do is practice a lot of, see, I'm not saying that, that consciousness or that nervousness goes away. Today, after 30 years of presenting, training, MD, managing directors of companies, etc., if I have to go on a stage and speak, I still get butterflies in my stomach. It's just that you can't see them. So often that shyness and that nervousness and the butterflies in the stomach is happening to us and only we know about it. The opposite person is 90% of the times unaware of it, unless you profusely start perspiring and it's a external trait that happens, so you start stammering. That's when somebody might realize that, oh, the person has is nervous, and they will try to make you comfortable. Remember that they are interested, which is why they are in front of you. So even if that happens, they will make you comfortable. But 90% of times what we are thinking and what we are afraid of doesn't even happen. It is only our inhibitions. So you have got to think that, you are alone in that room and you are presenting to yourself. You will get better with every presentation that you make. Those butterflies are only with you. Nobody else is able to see it.
Correct. Thank you.
Ma'am.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, Vikas.
Ma'am, Vikas here.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you one question. See, most of the startups, are either in their pre-seed stage or a seed stage sort of thing. So they
Right.
have an idea, they have a concept, they have to present it to the investor sort of thing. And when I am going to present as a startup, a new startup to the investor, definitely I do have a lot of questions in my mind as to what the investor would be asking, whether I would be in a position to answer properly to the investor, what sort of a convincing factor I should have to the investor. So if I have to convince an investor about my product, what would be the best way on the basis of which I should start my conversation with him in respect of it?
Put yourself in the place of the investor. If somebody was asking you for an investment, the kind that you are asking, and don't take your product as an example, take some other product, and you had the money to invest and somebody is coming to you, what were the 5 or 6 things that you would look for to ensure that your investment is safe? Are the very questions that an investor is also looking for. The biggest thing is that if the very reason he is even looking at your presentation is because preliminary it has looked good to him, it is of interest. Second is he has the resources, right? These 2 things he has, that is why he's sitting in front of you.
Yeah.
Now you have to be able to convince him on certain things. One is, of course, that his investment is safe is a later thing. First is whether what is your product or service? Have you researched the market enough to prove that there is a market for this? So who is your target audience? What study or research have you done to show that this product is needed? And who is going to need it? How is it going to be? What is your market going to be? And then I don't think in the initial stages, if it's the first time, the investors really want to know what is going to be the sales price. Have you done a competition analysis? But it would be good to at least do a competition analysis to know that which are similar or competing products and what are their features and why do you think yours is an innovative product vis-a-vis that?
Okay.
What are those competing products priced at? And then at a later stage, when they get into the financials and stuff, that's when you start working on what would be a good price and how would you go about marketing. So there are 2 parts to your presentation. The first part is the feasibility and why do you think that your product is something that will sell, something that the market wants. Plus your background, because the biggest thing is, see, when you're selling a concept or anything to somebody, before they buy your product or your service, they buy you. They know you, right? Before they even try out a product, whether it's a customer or it's an investor, you're selling yourself first. And when I say I'm selling yourself, which means I have to buy into the promoter, the one who is selling this product to me. If I don't trust you, no matter what product you are selling to me, I will not buy it.
That's true.
So how you build your own pitch is very important. Who are you? What is your qualification? What background do you come from? You need to show by instances that you are a perseverer, that you will not give up easily, that you have done enough market research to know that what you're working on has a market for it, that you've studied the target audience needs, you've done your competition analysis, but all of that is secondary till they buy into you. So being able to give a very good introduction of yourself is the first main thing in any investor pitch.
Okay.
Because they want to know your background. Then comes what made you get into this particular product, which could then lead to the market research that you did, the people you spoke to, the competition analysis that you did, etc., and how your product or service will fulfill a certain need that currently is not fulfilled or is fulfilled by very few players in the market.
Okay. Okay, ma'am, one just follow-up question for this which is basically in relation to my question as well as to your reply sort of. how many times or how many number of follow-ups I should do with the investor once I do a pitch. If he is showing a interest sort of thing, I know that the investor is showing a interest sort of thing, but then it should not happen that I continuously go on following up with him and it creates a sort of a pesterness to him and it creates a sort of a different impression about me. So what are the, how many times should I go ahead as far as the follow-up is concerned so that I can achieve these sort of a result? Because communication is one thing which I have to develop with the investor later on. But this initial communication sort of thing, to what extent I should go ahead and...
Okay, I'm going to answer your question with another question.
Yeah.
If an investor is not giving you an answer immediately, okay, you're following up, but he's not responding or saying that he needs more time, etc. Why do you think that is happening?
It could be some of other reasons also in respect of it. It could be his personal reasons, or it could be though he is convinced about the product, maybe due to some or the other things, he is not convinced about certain marketing aspects or certain other deliverable aspects. Maybe that those also could happen in respect to that. But I'm not getting a response from him. So in absence of a response, how am I going to convince him in respect to that?
The way I would say it is, there are only two reasons why somebody will not respond. One is a stall, one is an objection. Objection is when there are a lot of unanswered questions. So he is not sure about the product. He doesn't think there is a market. He doesn't think he has the money, but he's comparing it with something else also that is taking his attention, and he can't decide between the two. Things like that, right? Those are objections. And normally these objections, if you are a good communicator, you would have clarified these questions in your presentation. When you make the presentation and when your answer and clarify as many questions the investor asks right there and then. If there are some that you can't answer and you've taken time to get the, answer them later because you need to do some research, ensure that you've done that. And still, if he's not convinced, then you need to ask him that, is there something that you are still not convinced about, which I can help you with? It is okay to ask those questions because those are objections.
Okay.
The second is a stall. A stall is when he's just basically trying to buy time. And he probably is trying to buy time because he's not the ultimate decision maker. Maybe there are other people he also needs to influence or ask or take permission from or need approvals from, in which case you need to find out why he's taking so much time. Again, very tactfully you need to ask him that when the person says that, oh, give me some more time or I will come back to you later, you need to ask him that do you need the time because there are other decision makers involved? Would you like us to come and even present to them? So a stall is normally buying time, could mean anything. There could be it could even be an objection hidden behind that stall, but he's not telling you. He's not convinced, but he's not telling you. He's just being nice and saying, give me more time. So if you do not question, ask the right questions to understand. I mean, it's perfectly okay for him to say that, I am not interested. He will give you probably a reason also why he's not interested, because he thinks that there are too many products like this in the market and he doesn't see a market for it. While you see it, he doesn't. But at least you will stop following up then, right? Because you've got your yes or no.
Yeah.
But unless you ask these questions and understand what is a stall and what is an objection, and hence go ahead and be able to clarify it, you will not be able to constantly follow up. At some time, the person will just get irritated and say that, I will come back to you. You don't come back to me asking me questions.
Yeah.
So if you want that to stop, it is good to spend time in your first 2 or 3 meetings in trying and clarifying and asking the right questions, listening. Sometimes he's not saying things, but you can understand, you read between the lines and you know what's going on in his mind. If he's comparing between 2 different investments, He'll probably tell you if you ask him. So I think questioning skills will be very good. And when you follow up and he tells you sometimes person is very closed, then you need to ask him that, okay, I don't want to keep bothering you like that. What would be a good time for me to call you next? And then call him on that at that time and say that we had, agreed that I should call you after so many days. Hence, I'm making this call.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. A very small question from my side as well. A lot of times we have seen young entrepreneurs, mostly in the age group of 25 to 30, having a senior team member in their team. So while taking any decisions, so how a promoter should tackle a person with a lot more experience than him?
Okay, somebody very senior in the team in terms, I'm assuming you're talking in terms of age.
Correct. Also in terms of experience.
Experience, but may not be in the hierarchical level of the.
Right.
Right. So one is, of course, age demands respect, and experience demands respect. But the way also, it could also happen that, depending, of course, on the age of the person, they may not be very savvy. They may not be aware of the current situations and the current dynamics of the market. However, experience does help. So the best way to involve such a person without offending them if what their suggestions are not applied or are not taken, you don't go ahead with whatever the person had recommended, is to involve them and actually allow them to speak in the decision making process. Discuss with them, allow them that, actually give them that importance, saying that with your experience, what do you think we should do? Then weigh the pros and cons, and they say, while we would like to go with your decision, however, there are other things which are also impacting this, and hence this time we would like to go with this, which is you're respecting his inputs. You may want to go with his inputs as well. I'm not saying that you will completely disregard it. You may go partly with it, fully with it, or completely not take it into consideration at this point in time. But it's good to then tell them why. Yeah. So involve them, be transparent with them, because all they are looking for is that, I have been there, I have done this, and this is what happens. But at the same time, they will also understand the fact that, the world changes by the minute. So a lot of other things that impact a decision, you will, as a promoter, always weigh the pros and cons and go with that. So if you involve them like that, they will definitely appreciate it, rather than going behind their back and doing something, or not involving them because, he will come up with some archaic idea which you can't apply.
Correct. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was helpful. So from participants, yeah, Shine.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question. See, whatever you have shared is very deep. So, do we have to learn those things in doing, or is there any course available in the market to learn before itself having a team and learning the things in the process? Because as far as I know, like these things are not available in the courses that market is offering, like for example leadership, influencing, and every other aspects that you have covered.
Right, this is never a part of your syllabus. So no new entrepreneur, or for that matter, no graduate or MBAs or anybody, they don't learn these things in your syllabus. These things partly come with practice. So once you experience it, you will realize it. But I would, there are a lot of these soft skills programs available. Like I'm one such trainer, but there are a whole lot of trainers like that. And we do this for corporates, for organizations, for their employees, etc. But I would not recommend it to anyone unless you have, like, you know, a team of at least 10 people and you have started experiencing these things, because just knowledge and skills being given to you without applying them and realizing the impact of it doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So even if I trained you today, but you didn't have a chance to apply it, it wouldn't help you. It will only help you when you're actually doing these things and you experience it. Then all the skills that I train you on, you will be able to apply and fine tune them. So only do it
Yeah.
at the right time.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Welcome.
Do we have any other questions? No, I think we are done here. So thank you, ma'am, very much for this amazing session. On behalf of Arthayan, AICSKU, and all the participants, I thank you for being here, and I hope all the participants learned a lot from your talk. And we really thank you for your time and being here for this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And please feel free to contact me if anybody has any questions later on as well.
Definitely, ma'am.
All right. Thank you,
Okay, then.
everyone.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.